Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you are. Welcome to this second episode of Money Matters with Rising Energy. I am here with Brahim Lark, and we are talking about what is it about our education and the way that we are taught about money that impacts our financial freedom as adults, and then how can we really shift that? So thank you for being here with me today, Brahim.
Thanks for having me, Pam. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Such a joy to have you here. And so one of the things that you and I have been talking about is, just the fact that there's a lot of Americans that are struggling with debt right now. And, really it's like 80% of Americans, pretty large percentage. So, when we're talking about this level of debt, such a pervasive issue, it really does speak to the fact that people just haven't been educated as to how to handle their finances. And I know that this is an area that you've been working in for a little while. So I'm just curious, how are you seeing people kind of, in your experience, learn to shift out of some of maybe those, bad habits or, some of that training that they've received that just hasn't served them?
Well, you know what, Pam? I think what's very important is because when it comes to money and finance, it's a topic that a lot of people. It's a scary topic for a lot of people.
Yes.
It's something where a lot of people, like you said, haven't had a lot of education. They haven't had just a lot of experience in managing money and all of and everything that comes with it. So
Right.
I think to answer your question, what I've seen is that the method that we're using is for people not to have to become the expert themselves.
Mm,
It's the guidance that we can provide for them, to where it makes it a lot easier for them and a lot easier concept. Now, like we were talking, and just to kind of just throw out some numbers, because it is staggering. The debt that people are
yeah.
in. So like the average American household debt for people under 35 is $67,400.
Yeah.
35 to 44, $133,100. And it just goes up 75 and up. And this is crazy because by the time you're 75, a lot of people, you're supposed to be retired at this point.
Yeah.
But
Right.
people that are 75 and up are in at least $34,500 worth of debt,
Yeah.
which causes a lot of people to still work, to still have to do those
Exactly.
things at that age. So that I think having a team of people that can actually guide you and navigate you through all of these complex topics as far as your money goes is the best way to go. And with what we've been doing, we've been seeing amazing results using that method. You know,
I love that because, I think for a lot of people, including me, a lot of these topics can be intimidating. And, when it hasn't been a part of your education or really your upbringing, then it's all new and there's so much to learn. And so I think that, when you have a team that you can work with, it's like you can be learning, but then you also have them to rely on. And that's a really powerful thing. So,
right?
one of the things that I have really appreciated since I first started talking with you was just that consistency of I've got a question about this, who do I go to ask? And then, from there, if there's more I need to learn, I can figure that out. I can take it to the next step. And they're giving me that guidance along the way. So I don't feel like I'm all on my own trying to figure some of these things out. And
Right.
frankly, I didn't come from a background where these things were taught, and I didn't come from a family that, necessarily was business minded or owned a business or things like that. And so a lot of these topics were very new to me. And frankly, I spent years running a business, not knowing a lot of these things, and then having to kind of backtrack, right,
Right.
and learn them as I went, which is not the way
Right.
to do it, by the
Right.
way.
Right. And I'm the same way. And that's why when I did get involved with this, I just thought it was so beneficial for so many people to know because I think I started this journey about 3 years ago. I was 44 years old.
Mm,
And once I got exposed to the information, it was like, okay, everyone should know this, but these should be things that, I mean, from grade school to high school to college, that we should be taught. It's, I mean,
yes.
we should be taught money management, entrepreneurship, tax laws, things that are available to us here in this United States of America. I mean, a lot of people don't even understand that if you own a business, you you get to pay less in taxes. and
Right.
and and a lot of people, they don't even know where to find the information. Like, I remember when I
Yeah.
first got started in this industry, I went to the I was learning about tax law and what benefits I had as a business owner.
Yeah.
And I remember watching a video, and the guy in the video said, "Hey, the IRS publishes this right on their site. Go check it out." I went to the IRS.gov site and I looked at tax deductions for home-based business owners, and it was all laid out right there, right
Yeah.
in front of me. And it's just that people, you know, if you
Aren't
don't know
aware.
what
They
you
don't
don't know
know.
what you don't know, right?
That's
And I
right.
and I think that's what we're doing here, is just trying to spread that awareness. Because once you're financially set, it makes life completely changes. Not to
Right.
make money an emphasis, but in the United States, money can be used as a tool to fuel and be
Absolutely.
used to the things that you want to do. And if you're straight on that end, your life can be a lot more
Yeah.
enjoyable, just because you're
Right.
you're able to do the things that you really want to do, instead of trading your time to make money.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting too. I mean, like when you look at the income to debt ratio, for lower income households versus higher income households, the ratio is much higher for the lower income households. So the people who are making the least, of course, are struggling the most with debt. And so to me, that speaks to, the way that we're educating people about money at different levels too. And so to me, it's a
Right.
little bit about, okay, well, then we need to level the playing field a little bit so that people across the board really understand these principles. And so, and that to me is really, I think, I came into that understanding late in life. And had I
Mhm.
had a better understanding of that sooner, like you said, it would have provided me a lot more opportunities to use my money in a way that would then, help me to like support me in my goals longer term,
Right.
as opposed to, kind of feeling like I was always fighting that struggle with debt. And so I love the idea that, this is something that has become really a sort of mission of sorts, I think, for this particular group and this business, is to really help people to do this.
Exactly. And I mean, you see a lot of the stuff that's going on around us.
Yeah.
A lot of the things, the disenfranchised neighborhoods, like you said, the lower income families. A lot of these problems start to arrive because it's an economic disproportion between people. And when
Exactly.
you have economic disproportion, you have a lot of things that kind of spider web off of that.
Right. Right.
And so if we can be the beacons to help, to start, like you said, leveling that playing field, a lot of other things can start kind of falling into place and changing. You can get better education for kids in those lower income,
Exactly.
and lower income neighborhoods. you
Communities.
can you
Yeah.
can actually
Right.
start implementing programs where you're teaching them things exactly like this.
Right.
A lot of things, some privileged kids have this because they have in their family, they have
Right.
people that can actually guide them in that way. How are you going to know as a child if you don't have that type of guidance? So when you start kind of leveling out the playing field, like you said, and boosting up those neighborhoods economically, then you can start implementing change in a lot of other areas.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I mean, I remember even some of my high school classes, it was like there wasn't books,
Right,
because the school district couldn't afford it. And it's like, we're here to get an education, but we don't even have books, right? I mean, it was
right.
almost a joke. And so, I
Yep,
mean, I think that, it's unacceptable, frankly, to me that, we're supposed to be the greatest country in the world. And in many ways we are, but that we can't manage to educate our children about some of these most fundamental things, and at the same time, provide them books, I mean, just the
right,
most basic tools to do that. So, I mean, I really believe that this is a unique opportunity for people. This is an opportunity for them to step into something that maybe they haven't had provided to them in the past. To
right,
have that kind of education, to have people who really understand this at a deep level, who have been doing this type of work for many years. They're tax experts, they're investment experts. They really understand this in and out. And it's almost like being able to have a mentor, that you might not have ever had an opportunity to have access to.
right. And what the cost is what I think makes it most effective, because the access to these experts that we're talking about, generally that would, like, these are people that, business owners have on hand. If you own a business, you'll have an accountant, you'll have a
Yeah.
tax person, you'll have the accountant can handle your debt. You have these professionals that generally cost hundreds of dollars an hour to have these people on hand to call them for these advice. I mean, when you're running a business, even in your life, you can't be all things to all aspects.
That's
Most
right.
people have a team that they can delegate things to, because if you try to do everything yourself, you will. I mean, you'll you'll kill yourself. You'll get
Self-destruct.
burnt.
Yes.
You'll self-destruct. You'll be so burnt out, and you won't
Right.
be able to do everything effectively.
Exactly.
To be
Yeah.
honest. So I think the cool thing about this is that you literally get that team and that level of expertise for a price that almost everybody can afford.
Right.
I mean, I know there were times. I mean, we're talking about under $100. So I know that, there's times that I've spent more than $100 on sneakers, or on
Right.
a meal, or
Exactly.
a pair of jeans,
Yeah.
whatever. So I think that's kind of the key, because if you can give people access to something at a price that they can afford, um, the return on investment is just, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I love that you say that, because the reality is, what you're going to pay to hire these types of experts separately is largely, I mean, unaffordable for the majority of people,
Right,
not inexpensive. And so you have access to all of these people for that fee, which is just remarkable. But I do see that, for a lot of us, there is, and this goes back, I think, strongly to the way that we are interacting with money as children, and
right,
that lack of education is that we often view an expense as something that's actually costing us, right? That is
right,
somehow going to put us into a worse financial position. And so the reality is we have to come to an understanding that there are expenses that are actually investments that
right,
actually bring us a return, like you were saying, on that investment. But more than that, it takes us to a different place. It takes us to a different place of being. It takes us to a different lifestyle. It takes us to a different mindset. And those things really all play together in a very important way. And
right,
so that's one of the things that I kind of wanted to touch on, because one of my mentors in particular, when there's kind of an issue or a situation that I'm looking at, he will ask this question. He'll say, so who do you need to become to accomplish what you want? And I think it's such an important question, because we have to look at ourselves and say, okay, here are the things that maybe weren't given to me, that I haven't had as resources. What am I going to do about that?
Right. And see, that's the very first thing that changed for me.
Mm,
It sounds cliche, but it is mindset. And it's almost like, okay, if you're looking, you ever see one of those paintings where it's, it's all jumbled up and you kind of got to stare at it to see the image to make it all come together,
yeah.
and you have that light switch, and then you
That
finally like,
moment when
okay,
you
I
realize,
see it,
yeah,
right.
yeah,
So it's very, some people it can click like that, and some people it takes them a little while to get the clear vision, the clear
yeah,
focus. But it's kind of shifting your mind from everything that you were normally taught, and then kind of having that light bulb moment and saying, aha.
mm,
Because once I realized, okay, I can, and I'm speaking from a business term, but it translates to people getting their finances right, and actually kind of just looking at the whole gambit of money differently. Because what I realized at the time, when I was, I'm working 40 hours a week, I'm paying my bills, but by the time I'm done paying my bills and, you know taking care of essential needs, food and groceries and all that kind of stuff, I was broke. I
yeah,
literally had, and then I'm waiting till I get paid again the next week just to do the same thing all over
right,
again. And then once I realized that, okay, hold on, I have all of this stuff available to me, meaning I can really start up a home-based business for a very small startup cost, and I can take advantage of all of these tax laws, which would literally put more money back into my check that I'm
yeah,
already getting paid. Hmm. And then you start seeing, okay, well, wait, I'm paying for internet, I'm paying gas, I'm paying a cell phone bill, I'm paying rent, but really before I had a home-based business, all of those were just were bills.
yeah, right,
They turned into an expense, and that's what happens. They turned into a expense that I could actually write off and
right,
save in more taxes, because now I have a home-based business. And that's the aha moment. I mean, it's like you see that switch and you
yeah,
see, okay, hold on. I'm investing in myself. With me investing in myself, it's actually going to propel me forward a lot faster than I
right,
was going. There has to be a time where you look back and you're saying, okay, I've been doing this for years. Nothing's changing. I have to I have to pivot. There has to be a different move that I
right.
can make, because the way that I'm going, it's not working. And so it, I just think that if you are just like those statistics that we just read, this is most people.
Right.
Most people are literally living in debt. Pretty 78% of Americans are
Yeah.
living in debt. So
Right.
that is a wide range of people. And if
It's a
you're one of those
huge
people,
percentage.
and I think, you know what, Pam, sometimes people just, they get to a place where they become um, complacent, and they're just
Yeah.
like, you know what, this is just the way it is. You
Right.
know, and some people go on to live happy lives, as happy as they can be, but not as happy as they could be.
Exactly. Right.
You know,
Yeah. Right.
and I think that's just it. It's just like, you got you if you want better, and then at that point, if you want better, and then you seek out the information to get better, now once you
Right.
know better, you will definitely do better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I completely agree with you because even in my own experience, as a single mom, it took me a number of years to finally come to a point of realizing, this isn't long term sustainable. Like, I'm not, willing to live the rest of my life this way. And then what do I have to do to make that change? And it wasn't until I started my own business that
Hmm.
then I started to understand better, okay, I really do have some control. There are some things that I can do to help myself. And that was a big
Right.
step forward for me. Now, I would
Absolutely.
have loved to have had a service like this at that time. That would have been wonderful because it really truly would have been a game changer for me in a lot of ways because I was trying to do it largely all on my own.
Right.
And so, when you're in that position, you kind of feel like it's really an uphill climb the whole way. And
Absolutely.
that's not to say that I didn't learn a lot from that, because I definitely did. But having that learning mindset is great, and we can do a lot more, I think, often than we think we can. But the reality is that it doesn't have to be that hard. That there are resources. If we can just tap into them, then we free ourselves up to really focus on the things that are going to move us further forward in life and get us to where we really want to go. And I think that's part of this too, is kind of having that mindset of, what do I really want? And am I committed to getting it? And, it's
Right.
like you were saying before, like, sometimes we're super committed to getting that $100 pair of sneakers,
Yeah.
like we are going to have those bad
Yeah.
boys,
Oh,
right?
I'm gonna get them. I'm getting them.
Yeah,
I don't care what happens. I might have to put a bill off, but I'm getting them.
right.
And I mean, it's amazing, but we spend a lot on nonsense. We spend
Yeah.
a lot on things that aren't going to help us. But when it does come time to spend some money on something that will actually invest in ourselves, people are very hesitant.
Right.
Now they're watching their pennies, but you
Exactly.
weren't watching your pennies when you were buying the 800. I mean, $180 LeBrons.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, and it really does. It goes back to, what is it that we really want, and how committed are we to actually getting that? And sometimes I think that, we see things short term. We don't necessarily look at the long term, or if we look at the long term, we're like, oh, well, I'm never going to be able to do that. Again, it goes
right,
back to that mindset of, how do you really view money? And so coming to a place where you realize that the way that you are even looking at money as a whole is critical in all of this. And you and I have talked about that quite a bit, and that's something that we talk about in our group a lot too. And I've kind of done a
absolutely,
little series for people, so that they have the opportunity to kind of address those things. We don't have time really to dig into all of that here, but I mean, those are some things that we're really trying to help people with on our own team, to come to that understanding and to help themselves to grow in that way too. But I mean, I just feel like some of these basics of understanding that there are expenses that, that may not serve you, but there are expenses that are going to serve you, and to know the
absolutely.
difference.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Um, I mean, I really don't have much to say after that, because it really just comes down to shifting your mind and really knowing what you want out of life. I think that's where my tenacity and my consistency
Mm-hmm.
comes from, because I know what I want,
Yeah.
and I know what I'm shooting for, and I'm not letting anything stop me from getting it. So
Love it.
um if you don't have that, and unfortunately, I remember coming out of high school, and I didn't
Yeah.
know I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what, and that caused such a long time, or actually so much time wasted, because I
Yeah.
had no direction.
Yep.
And thank God it came to me eventually, while I still had some youth, and I still had
Right.
time that I could actually carry it out. But that's a huge part, knowing what you want out of life. And once you know what you want, it doesn't even matter if you don't know how to get it. But once
Right.
you know what you want, you'll start down that path to getting. Because if you don't know
100%.
how to get it, you will. If you want it bad
That's right.
enough, you'll start seeking out those ways to get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that even though these are things that we can learn later in life as well, maybe more importantly, these are things that we can be teaching our children. These are
Right.
the things they are not learning in school. And that, if we really want to set them up for success, then these are the things they need to be learning. But we can't teach them if we don't know them and we don't understand them. And I think,
Right.
in some senses, that's even maybe more important for their generation than it has been for ours, because there's been so much economic uncertainty, especially in the last several years. And so they're going to be dealing with that, you know. And so the challenges that we've faced, as difficult as they've been, are definitely not going to be any easier for them. And so being able
Absolutely.
to, you know, help them as they come into adulthood. And I'm dealing with that myself with my own son, you know, and some of the
Right.
challenges, of course, that are going on now. So
Right.
these are all things that we can not only use to serve ourselves, but also to serve future generations and to create legacies.
Exactly. And that's one real cool thing about these past 3 years is that my kids have been able to actually see me doing this. I've
Yeah,
actually hired them to do
love
some
it.
things for me online, you know, and so they're learning about entrepreneurship. They're learning
So
about,
awesome.
kind of how to manage their money, and they're learning all these things at a very young age, you know, and that is something
So
that I
good.
didn't have, and I just love that, being able to pass that on to them, you know.
So much value in that. So much value in
Yep,
that. And I, you know, I'm
absolutely.
right there with you. I didn't really have that either. And it's one of those things that, you know, I've kind of come to, I feel like a little too late in life. I'm glad I've come to it though. And I'm glad I've come to it at a point where I'm able to start helping my son while he's still younger, you know, while
Right.
he still has the opportunity to make some of those
Hmm.
changes now before he builds his debt to, you know, ridiculous
Exactly.
amounts like
To
everyone else.
$200,000. I know it's so crazy.
Right.
Like like I was telling you, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I always liked art. I was, I drew, and it was just something I kind of did as a hobby though. And
Yeah.
so I'm running around. I have no idea. So I was like, you know what? I'll just go to the art institute and I'll become a computer, and I'll get into computer animation.
Yeah.
And got there and realized that I wasn't that passionate about it. So I switched, and I switched to fashion marketing. I said, well, maybe I can, open a clothing store. I was really into music and hip hop and stuff, and maybe I
Yeah.
can open a hip hop clothing store. But it was just all slapstick and thrown together. I ended up graduating, but I didn't. I mean, after I got out of college, I was doing IT. I had nothing to
Yeah.
do with anything, and I racked up 80 grand in debt for a degree that I wasn't even using.
Yeah.
And so,
And which is the case for so many people,
yep,
you know.
yep,
I mean, I was in a very similar boat of having all of this education and then being like, I can't get a job that's going to pay these bills
right,
off, right? So I'm right there with you.
yeah,
And we're definitely, you know, we are definitely not the exception, sadly. I mean, that's pretty much the rule for a lot of people who
right,
have gone to college.
yep. I mean, it really is. And I tell my kids now, I said, listen, like my son, he's a baseball player. He's really good. He'll probably, most likely on the trajectory that he's on, he'll probably, get a scholarship or something
Wow.
along
Love
that
it.
line. My daughter, she likes, you know, she kind of likes the show business type of stuff,
Oh, yeah.
performances and stuff like that. So, but I tell them, I say, listen, guys, unless you are going to go to college to specifically be like a doctor or a lawyer or something very specific, please don't go to college. You know, make sure
Yeah.
that you guys have some type of idea of what you want to do and what you want to be, and then go for it. Because
Right.
I'm telling you, you don't want to end up like me, going to college, ended up in debt for a degree that you're not even going to use, and that you can't even make
Right,
money off.
exactly. And how
So
amazing that they're seeing you now running your own business and seeing how all of these things work, understanding what it means to have these kind of resources. So, I mean, just
right,
being able to watch you do that is such a great education for them and helps them to
absolutely,
realize, yeah, no, I can see where I've got these two options, you know, and which one would
right,
I prefer.
right,
So, yeah, and
exactly.
to be able to put people in that position for them to be able to do that with their kids is a really powerful thing.
It is, and it's really been cool. I mean, unfortunately, this COVID thing happened, but it was kind of a blessing in disguise because I got to actually sit at home with them. You know, be around the family more. They see me at least a lot more than they did. You know, we got to spend a lot more time together. So it's been a blessing. And then on top of which, it's like when you're running an online business and you have so many people at home, a lot of people are looking, and out of work, a lot of people are looking for online opportunities. So you saw the actual business kind of do almost a 5x during these last 2 months, you know. So, you know, there's always something positive out of a negative, you know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love the fact that people are being empowered through this, you know, even whatever, you know, whatever their situation, that they have the opportunity to look at it and say, how can I bring something good out of this? You know, if I lost my job, then how can I turn that around and start my own business out of it? How can I do something to make my situation better from this?
Right. Exactly. It's amazing. But I just hope people can, you know, really take a look at their situation and really start to just kind of think, okay, you know, I just hope that we're reaching some people today, you know, and I pray that whoever, you know, needed to hear this has heard it. You know, maybe you guys will catch the replay, but you know, one thing I hope that you guys can take away is to kind of shift your mindset, look at your situation. If you don't like the way where you are at, pivot and make a different move. You know, my mentor tells me all the time, you have to play chess and not checkers. Sometimes you have to think 2 and 3 moves ahead, you know, and I don't think often enough that we do that. So hopefully, you know, people can literally, you know, start just making some different choices and different decisions.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here. I did pop the web address down below. So if anyone is interested in finding out more, they can go there and learn a little bit more about the business and just about how they can get support for their own business, or, you know, if they're interested in starting a business. Also, they can reach out to us individually at any time, of course. Just send us a PM, or, you know, connect with us on Facebook somehow. I don't know if you're a big Instagram user. I'm a little old and behind the times, so I sometimes use it and sometimes don't.
I'm on it, but you know, that's something. I'm actually, you know, what's funny is I'm actually the Instagram side of it. I have some things kind of in the works where I'm going to be starting to use some virtual assistants to kind of handle that for me. So I have a presence there, you know. But I'm mainly on Facebook. You know, you can always contact me, just Brahim Lark. That's my name. I don't have an internet name, you know. You can always inbox me, shoot me a friend request, and absolutely, you know, you can reach out. I'm very accessible. So
I love it. I love it. And of course, I'm Pamela Aubrey, so you know where to find me. And we, you know, really, for both Brahim and I, this is somewhat of a passion. I mean, we really love to see people coming up into, you know, a new kind of understanding and a new kind of awareness around these things, and really, you know, being empowered, just rising into the kind of person and really the kind of life that they are meant to live. And so we just want you guys to know that, you know, whatever your situation is, that, you know, we are here to support you, and we want you to know that this is a journey that we will help you go on. And it doesn't have to be challenging. You know, if it seems a little scary, if it seems intimidating, which I know it was for me in the beginning, don't be afraid. Don't be intimidated. It's much easier than we make it a lot of times. And so absolutely. Just reach out. Don't hesitate. And thank you again, Brahim. I really appreciate you being here.
No, thanks, Pam. I enjoyed it. It was awesome.
Yeah, this was great.
Thank you so much.
So we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely. All right. See you later.
Sounds good. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.